You're watching Business Nigeria. Amid global economic headwinds, the stock market of the Nigerian Exchange Limited maintained its positive momentum in the first 9 months of 2022, gaining 4.15 trillion naira to outshine global markets that have witnessed severe volatility. The market capitalization of the NGX had opened in 2022 at 22.297 trillion naira, gaining 4.15 trillion naira to close at 26.45 trillion naira as of September the 30th, 2022. Also, the NGX all-share index appreciated by 14.8% year to date to 49,024.16 basis points from 42,716.44 basis points. The stock market opened in 2022 for trading. But in the 9 months under review, investors in the Nigerian stock market have witnessed double-digit inflation, scarcity of foreign exchange, uncertainty in global economies, and of course, a hike in the monetary policy rate from 15.5 to 16.5%. Now let's talk this through by talking virtually as we analyze the performance of the Nigerian capital market for the year 2022 amid global economic headwinds is an investment banker and stockbroker, Mokhtar Mohammed. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, quickly, what's your assessment of the performance of the stock markets in this month of November?
Well, there are a lot of takeaways, but I think the first takeaway is that the market was largely driven by indigenous investors ever since we had the COVID crisis. So we've seen indigenous investors, Nigerian investors, playing the market up to about 80 to 90% of the investors there are Nigerians. I think for me, that's one of the biggest positives. Then we saw some companies, blue chip companies like MTN and others doing very well, even Airtel. Then we saw the result that have come out, especially from large cap stocks, have been impressive, despite the downturn in the market, in the economy. We saw a lot of positivity also towards the end of this last quarter, based on the data that we got from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, that foreign investors are beginning to come back, even if they are just come back by 11 point something percent. So for me, I think those are most of the positives in this for the first 9 months. You look at the impressive results, you look at the market that was driven mostly by indigenous investors, and you see the market.
We seem to have lost Mr. Mohammed momentarily. Mr. Mohammed, I want to confirm whether you're there, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, carry on. We lost you momentarily. Carry on.
I said the positive on the market was we saw a market that was largely driven by indigenous investors. We saw a market that the impressive result from the large cap companies. We saw a market also that had foreign investors coming in for the first time in the last 3 months, according to data that we got from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So when you look at that and by the impressive numbers and comparing that to other stock market globally, you have no reason but to say the Nigerian market has really outperformed investors and sentiment, especially if you're a long-term investor and looking at this market was driven by indigenous investors. So I think for me, that's the positive in the first 9 months of the year.
Makes sense. Well, can we then hope to see a market using this last quarter to recover from previous losses of the year?
Well, if you look at those previous losses of the year, they were largely driven by Airtel and then maybe Nestle and also Nestle Airtel. So we will see those recovering from those stocks, then we are going to see the market rebound. But the tendency of those stock recovering in the short term is very low because investors are now doing comparable analysis and looking at other stocks that are cheaper and will pay them good dividends. So they are beginning to look towards those areas. But if you say in the next 3 months, what we expect the market, we expect the market to continue to do the ups and downs, for the last quarter of the year. And by January, we'll see a market that results will begin to come in. And then at that time, we'll have an election that would have been completed and without any issues with the new administration coming to power. And we could see a market that will just recover very well and go to the long bullish run. And like I say, what we've observed in the market this far, we've not seen this long bullish run. It's because of foreign investors that normally stay for 6-7 months are not there. And so what you have are retail investors and then institutional investors from Nigeria. Like I said, most of them are short-term driven. There are those that used to play the treasury market, a fixed income space. So they are here for 191 days. They're here for 300, and they're not there for 360. Some of them are even just there for 90 days. So definitely, if we look at that, we look at the fixed income space, we look at the dividend yield that we are expecting from the market, we are very optimistic that we could see an upside of the market towards the end of the year and the beginning of a new year.
Well, very quickly, in what way do you think the CBN monetary policy rate, would impact on the, what we are actually having a conversation about, especially as it was increased from 15% to, 16% in the last MPC meeting?
Well, if you look at that, the reason behind those rate hikes is to attract foreign investors. You could say if the data that we got from Nigerian Stock Exchange, anything to go by, then we would say that has been a positive because we saw the foreign investors coming into about 11%. But again, we also made to understand that most of those investors that are coming back to the market are investors that were planning their exit point, but they are not able to get FX to exit. So the two-way exchange system was a problem for them. So instead of their money just lying fallow, they came back to the market. So you could see in a way that has impacted. But I think the rate hike for the CBN was also to attract investors in the fixed income space. And I think they've not really succeeded in doing that in the short term. But I hopefully, with the downtrend in month-to-month inflationary figure from a high of about 0.2% from a high about 0.2% to 1.8%, we could see the fixed income space being one place that foreign investors like playing because of the low risks that is there, and then the high return in terms of dividend, in terms of payment, dividend. Equity that will be paying good dividends at the year end, and at the point when you calculate that based on what you want to get in the fixed income space and what you get in the equity space, some investors still prefer to play the stock market than go into the fixed income space.
Yeah, we're still talking about the stock market. The telecom stocks are actually once again showing strength, and in the sector. In the month of December, is the month of December going to sustain the growth in the sector?
Well, when you look at we're entering festivity period, data is king now. Everybody is involved in this festivity period. You could say yes, definitely it will. But again, you also will have to look, like I said, will investors be looking there at most of the prices? I think it depends on what investors are at the moment. The market is largely driven by sentiment, perception rather than results. And if you look at that with the telecom sector, you can but expect that there could be a lot of activities towards the year end, especially when you look at the festivity period. Like I said, we have a lot of people using data, we have a lot of people doing calls. So I think the positivity of this festivity period will have an impact in the telecom sector, especially when they release their final year results.
Well, before I let you go, looking at the running inflation eating deep into investable funds, what type of earnings are we expecting in the market as we approach the year end?
Yeah, what we say investors should be doing now, they should be doing what we call value investment, looking at companies that have strong fundamentals, looking at companies that even in the half year, they've been able to pay interim dividend. And that you look at the banking sectors, you look like a stock like Zenith, GTCO, you look at UBA, you look at even First Bank, you can see the kind of recovery. Then you look at Fidelity, if you're looking at the tier 2 banks that was able to pay interim dividend. And when you compare that, okay, let's say what they paid last year, they still pay this year, then definitely you'll be having a dividend yield of above 16 to 17%, depending on the price level you enter. So definitely, I think it's still a good time for investors to look at that market, do their comparable analysis. And when you have a downtime and economy, liquidity is king. And so you look for companies that will be enhancing your liquidity going forward so that you can take opportunity in other in those investments in other stock sector of the Nigerian economy. So definitely, I think going forward, we must look at the banking sector. We also have to look at the brewery sector because of activities.
Yeah.
And like we said before now, the telecom sector also because of festivity period. So if you put that and looking at that and your dividend yield, I think the stock market still give you more return comparable to the fixed income space.
Yeah, Mr. Mohammed, let me just indulge you a bit before I actually release you. Talking about the closing details of the trading activities on the Nigerian exchange. Look at the ASI index. The losers, we've got Mark Nicola, we've got Score, Jais Bank, Wapik, Insurance, and this very last one here. And then talking about the gainers, Prestige Assurance, NEM Insurance, Courtville, Thomas Watt, and Nascon. What's your assessment of their performance so far?
Well, when you look at the gainers and the loser company, the gainers and the loser, you realize that most of the stocks that are there are just large small cap stocks, and these are stocks that are mostly for short-term traders. These are stocks that most traders use for speculating. So definitely you see those ups and downs because of their penny nature of it. So when you look at that, but when you look at the large scale stock and you realize that most of them are still maintaining the same price equilibrium, what you're seeing that investors are still holding on to some of those good stocks that will be paying good dividend, while speculators are still playing around with some stocks that they think they can make capital appreciation in the short term. So that's what is playing out in the market at the moment. And when you see them gaining those speculative stocks, they decide to take opportunity in those highly fundamental stocks of queuing or for the dividend payout that will be coming by the end of the year. So definitely we'll continue to see those things happen in the market from now till the end of the year.
Right. Well, we really appreciate your time. Investment banker and stockbroker, Mukhtar Mohammed, thank you so much for that keenness of insight that you've provided, for the happenings in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a pleasant day.